Welcome everyone to this episode of People, Their Passion and Purpose. I am really excited today. Well, I mean, I'm always excited, but again, so excited to speak to Karen Malkin-Lazarovitz
You got
and,
it.
and her project called Empower Inc. Let me just say that today, Karen, you are at Gallery 203. So you're calling in from there, a
I am the
beautiful gallery. And you are having an event there, a fundraiser there.
we are.
So maybe you'll tell us a little bit about that at the end. But I
Sure.
just want to let people know if you see people walking by or if you might hear a little bit in the background, that's where you're calling from. So we're really excited to have you here. Karen, you had decided to go under some risk-reducing surgeries when you found out you had the BRCA mutation. And just to make sure that you wouldn't actually have cancer in the end. And
Yeah.
so you went through many surgeries and many trials and tribulations. And so I'm really happy to have you here to share those experiences because I think a lot of people out there will resonate and will listen to this and be hopeful and feel strong. And also, I would like for you to tell us also how you started Empower Inc. and what that has done for you and so many women. So I'm going to let you go and get started.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so glad we connected. The first thing I do want to say, though, is my story is not meant to strike fear. I think sometimes when people hear the things that I've done to prevent cancer, it scares them. So I just kind of wanted to put that out there first, that it's not a story that's meant to scare. It's really more about knowledge and education and awareness and sort of taking control of your own life and doing what you want. So, that being said, I was born with an inherited cancer mutation that put me at high risk for certain types of cancers. Breast and ovarian cancers are the two most prominent ones. But when you have a BRCA mutation, you're actually also at higher risks for, if you're a man, prostate cancer, for both sexes, also pancreatic cancer, some uterine cancers. It's really, they're just evolving now and learning a little bit more about it. But the basic concept is that everybody has a BRCA gene. That gene is a tumor suppressor gene, and it's meant to fight off tumors that enter into certain parts of your body because we all have tumors that enter, and our different parts of our DNA fight to protect us. When you have a broken BRCA gene or a mutated gene, what it means is that your body is not able to fight out those cancers. So if a tumor enters in, that BRCA gene is broken. So the tumors enter in and we cannot protect ourselves, which is why people say, well, you can just wait until you get cancer and then get treatment. However, the mutated gene is still mutated, so we have no protection when more cells enter in.
Mm.
So, what I decided when I found out that I had this mutation is the only way for me to reduce my risk of certain cancers was to undergo prophylactic or risk reducing surgeries to remove healthy body parts to decrease my risk of developing those cancers.
Wow. Okay, just so you cannot fix the broken gene.
Correct.
You have to remove the body part. I mean, it sounds, I look again, we're not here to scare people. We're here to empower
Exactly.
people. But to remove some of the parts of your body that might have been affected by the broken genes.
Exactly. And it's not an art form. There still is a risk of developing those cancers. But when you have no breast tissue, there's
Mhm.
nowhere for those cells, those cancer cells to go,
Mhm.
which is why they reduce the risk with these surgeries. I also want to say to just not strike fear, we're talking about 5 to 10% of the population.
Okay.
It's a small percentage, but in the full scheme of things, it still is a lot of people that are affected. Again, it's not meant to scare. It's
Yeah.
just meant for people to be a little bit more informed.
It's educational. I mean, I never
Exactly.
really understood until you explained. I never looked it up. I never, had the opportunity to do that. So,
And I
So,
also,
yeah.
if I can add one other thing, it's also really important to know that you can get this mutation from both sides of the family because you get 50% of your genetics from your mother and
Mm,
you get 50% of your genetics from your father. So
mm,
you can get this inherited mutation from either side of the family.
right,
I got this mutation from my father's side of the family because his mother died of ovarian cancer. His aunt died of breast cancer. His cousin died of ovarian cancer. And unfortunately, my father just passed away last year of prostate cancer.
oh,
Yeah. So
sorry.
thank you. So it's important to know that you can, in fact, get this from both sides of the family. Oftentimes, doctors who are not fully informed about these mutations will assume that because there's no breast cancer on your mother's side of the family, that you're not at risk.
Right, right. Wow, that's so interesting. Thank you for sharing that. And
Yeah,
I'm so sorry for your dad.
yeah.
Um,
So, but he's looking down on me
yes,
and he's just he's my angel up there now.
yes.
And so I decided 16 years ago, after I found out from my father that he had this mutation, that I didn't want to take the chance of waiting for cancer to strike. I was given an 87% chance of developing breast cancer.
Wow.
So I always say if you get on a plane and the pilot says, "Welcome aboard, today you have an 87% chance of crashing."
Right.
How many people would stay on that actual flight?
Exactly.
Or what if you buy a lotto ticket and you find out you have an 87% chance of winning?
Right.
So
Exactly.
I looked at it logically
Right.
and decided I didn't want to undergo regular checkups every 6 months and have to worry about when the next shoe would drop. And so I decided for my own peace of mind, I was a young mom. My kids were 2 and 4. I had only been married 5 years, and I wanted to live a happy, healthy life. I think that risk reducing surgeries are scary, but cancer is a million times scarier.
Yeah. So, can we just stay there for a moment and
Sure.
talk to me a little bit about the decision you made and some of the things that you went through with your family, with your partner to help you on this journey? Like
Yes.
being so young and so new at everything.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think the first thing you could say is that whether you have a supportive partner or a non-supportive partner, whether you have people who are actually completely behind you, at the end of the day, you have to do what's best for you.
Mhm.
It's really important to be comfortable with your own decisions. Now, that being said, I happen to have a really supportive husband
Mhm.
who, when I told him about this genetic testing, wasn't even a question. We both said, well, obviously we're going to do this. We want to be here for our families. So my husband was supportive before I had even made decisions. And
Mm.
I think that having that support allows you to feel more confident in the decisions that you make. But I knew right away from the second that I was diagnosed that I was going to undergo ovary removal and remove my breasts.
Mm.
I was petrified of being diagnosed with cancer. So my fear drove me to
Mm.
do these surgeries. And my cousin, who passed away of ovarian cancer, underwent the surgeries. And when she went through the surgeries, they found stage 4 cancer.
Mm. Oh,
So
okay.
I was just petrified. And from the time that I found out that I have this mutation, even though really it didn't change anything about my life, every cramp I thought was cancer, and every ache in my breast I thought was cancer. And if I had a period pain, I thought it was cancer. So I wasn't functioning properly because I was driven by fear.
Mm.
So even though I pretended to think about what I was going to do, when I left speaking with the genetic counselor, I had already started pushing to do these surgeries.
Yeah.
I also feel because I had had my children already, I didn't have to make decisions that forced me to question whether I was going to have to deal with fertility, whether I was going to have another child, whether I was going to nurse, because my children had already been born and I had the opportunity to do that already. So it made those decisions a little bit easier for me personally because I had already an established family, and a supportive husband.
Yeah.
I should say that had found out about this before children, I personally would have still had children, even if I knew they had a 50% chance of developing this, because I think there are scarier things in life than a cancer risk.
Right. And so, I wonder if you have any resources or if not, at least, encourage people who need to talk about this with somebody. This we hadn't spoken about before, and there's like so many issues. You're right. Like you already had your kids, you had a supportive husband, but for people who are in a different situation than you, maybe earlier on, do you have any resources that we can?
Yes,
Okay,
I
great.
do. So the great thing now is as we're evolving with research, and because BRCA mutations are sort of on the forefront of right now of research because they know a little bit more about this mutation, there are things that now doctors are trying to do in order to be able to allow younger women to
Hmm.
not have to make these decisions.
Oh.
There are now tests that are going on. They have done some removal of fallopian tubes without removing the ovaries or the uterus. And they're checking to see if the cancer actually starts in the fallopian tubes. So there is testing for that. There are other options as well in certain hospitals where if you are, in fact, positive that you do want to undergo ovary removal, well, then you can speak with doctors and they can talk about egg freezing. So even though it's even though it's scarier when you're younger, the doctors are now really understanding that it's not just about making a decision to remove healthy ovaries, it's the repercussions of all of those. And they're really trying to work now to give the confidence to these women
Hmm.
to still allow them to move forward with their lives.
Yeah, and I would also say, as a certified life coach, that there's also a lot of the emotional side of it and the fact that you really want to be clear on your decisions. And so maybe find, a counselor or a coach, a life coach, someone that you can
Absolutely.
actually speak with about it to help you become more clear about
Yeah,
and support you in whatever it is that you need, whatever decisions you need to
exactly.
make. I just want to throw that in there.
A
So,
100%. And I think another thing that's really important is that when you find out, when you eventually go for genetic testing, you have to meet with a genetic counselor first. And
mhm.
that's crucial because they give you all the statistics. There's so many different factors to play into the statistics and your high risk. So it's possible that maybe you do have this mutation, but if you look at all of the family history on your side of the family and you see there is no ovarian cancer, well, that allows you to make decisions and wait a little bit longer. Doctors are never going to tell you to undergo these surgeries right away. Many
Right.
doctors will say you have time, you can wait.
Mm,
So it plays in with your family history
mm,
and with all the statistics they have, which is why, like you said, it's so important to speak with somebody, whether it's a coach, whether it's a therapist, whether it's somebody who has a lived experience. It's important to get people's opinions, advice, direction, and then you gather all that information. And then, of course, you do what's best for you.
mm.
But you can't go through something like this alone.
Yeah. Okay. That's great. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And so, okay, so you had the surgery, and now where, before we were talking, I said, I think you're going to have to lead us here because
Yeah.
there are so many things that I really don't know about. So, I just ask you questions as we go along. So tell
No
me, what is the
problem.
next step that you want to go into? Like you.
So I think it's really important to know that if you do decide to undergo any type of prophylactic, which means risk reducing, any type of risk reducing surgeries for women, be it ovaries or breasts, to understand that, first of all, it is in fact an amputation. And I think people trivialize that. I hear so often, well, at least you get new boobs or you don't need a bra. But I think it's important to understand that a mastectomy is in fact an amputation. It is removing all of your breast tissue. So you do lose feeling and you do sometimes lose your nipples and it affects your self-esteem. It affects intimacy if you're dating. It affects how you feel in your own body. And so those are things that are so important that you need to talk about. And part of that is speaking with different plastic surgeons and doctors and to be able to get second opinions and to really talk with people who have lived experiences, to not rush through a decision,
Mm,
because it really is important to understand what you're doing and all of the repercussions that come along with that.
mhm,
And intimacy is a really big thing when it comes to women. You don't think about it until you've lost your breasts. Some women, their breasts are their erogenous zone. So if you've lost your breast, does that mean that now intimacy wise, they're not going to feel the same? So it's so important to speak with healthcare professionals and talk about surgeries and what type of procedures they offer, and
mhm,
inform yourself as well, and to be your own advocate. That's
yeah.
really important.
Yeah, I can also see how they'll bring issues to light that you never even thought about.
Exactly.
Because we're not in
Exactly.
touch, like we're not in touch with our bodies. Like,
We're not.
so that's a whole other discussion. We won't go there right now.
Exactly. But I think well, that's what it is. I just think it's important to know, people trivialize mastectomies. We just think of them as like, oh, she's had a mastectomy. But I think it's just so important to know that there's a sensitivity that comes along with it, and that it's okay to talk about it and to normalize it a little bit. That
Mm.
no, it's not just removal of breast. It comes along with a whole set of its own personal issues. And it's so important to talk about that, which is why I'm so happy we're speaking, because I think that we've become so conditioned to believe that, it's not a big deal. But it is, and it's something that's so important to address.
It's a
And
very big deal. It's a part of your body.
exactly. And once you've undergone these things, you're kind of under the control of a healthcare professional who's telling you what to do, who's giving you advice.
Mm.
You don't have full control of your body. And as someone who has personally gone through a double mastectomy and unfortunately suffered complications and 8 additional surgeries, you suffer trauma. And the last thing you want is somebody else telling you what to do with your body.
Yeah.
And we'll obviously talk about it later. That's what sort of spurred me to focus on the control that we can have within our own bodies, and why I've started this exciting project.
Yeah. So let's just go into a little bit about that feeling or some of the things that the doctors did tell you and try to control you over your body that gave you this push to do what you did. Like,
Yeah.
so that'll give us an idea of where the passion came from, right?
Exactly. So when I first underwent my double mastectomy, it was 16 years ago, and people didn't necessarily have the best advice to give me. And plastic surgeons at the time just wanted to reconstruct nipples and areolas, because oftentimes when you have a mastectomy, they will remove the nipples and areolas because there's a risk of breast cancer in the milk ducts.
Mm,
As they are evolving with different types of surgeries and reconstructions, women nowadays are able to sometimes keep their nipples.
mm.
I didn't have that option. So I used to joke when I was working that, for my Christmas bonus, I wanted like a right areola or a left nipple. Used to joke about that. Then I underwent 8 additional surgeries due to complications, and I didn't want to see another doctor for as long as I lived. And the more I underwent more surgeries and the trauma and the recovery, the less I wanted nipples. And I've always been a fan of tattoos.
Mm,
And so it got me thinking. And the plastic surgeons at the time just kept on saying, you're not complete until we reconstruct your nipple, we tattoo an areola. And I didn't want to do that. That wasn't the way
mhm,
I wanted to do things. And
mhm.
plastic surgeons obviously like things to look complete. So they want things to look normal. But who's to say what normal is?
Exactly.
And so I was tired of the doctors telling me what I needed to do. And I decided that I was going to do something without anybody telling me what to do. And that was to cover my mastectomy scars with a creative artistic tattoo.
Wow.
And I didn't need the doctor to tell me where it was going to go or how they were going to do it or what needed to be done. I, for the first time, was in control of my body 100%. And that gave me so much power because it was the first time I was actually starting this next chapter the way that I wanted to do it.
Right.
And so I went and I found an amazing artist who loved what I was doing and based on my idea created a spectacular floral tattoo. And when I looked in the mirror that night, I couldn't believe that I was seeing beauty where once I saw scars and trauma and PTSD and the reminder of the complications and the decisions I was faced with and the recovery that I had to do when my children were still in diapers. And I realized I am going to feel confident in my skin and I want other women to have this option as well.
Wow.
And so it birthed my idea for Empower Inc.
Wow. So, oh my God. I just want to go back onto the topic of the podcast, which is people, their passion and purpose. And I always feel like I just want to go back into your life for a second,
Yeah.
where what part of your personality has always been like that? Like what part of your personality, like, yes, this gave you the place to put that energy in, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? And yes, but there's always something inside of you from when you were a kid or that, so tell
So
me where it comes
I
from, that feeling of whatever it is, helping people, empowering, wanting to have control, you know?
so I'd like to say I was probably born with a passion to pay it forward.
Okay.
That's sort of how I see it. Now, that being said, when I was young, my mom used to take me, she was working for cancer research, and she would take me when I was like 10 and 11 years old to Fairview, where they would do like Christmas gift wrapping
Oh,
um, when I was young. So I started doing that and I loved it. But I've also always been that voice for people who can't speak for themselves. I think it was something I was born with. I have always been that person who has voiced what I needed to say. My husband always says I never met a conversation I didn't like. And I
mm-hmm.
think that sort of sums up who I am. I've always wanted to fight for people who feel lost or don't have their own voices. And it I think when I found out about this mutation 16 years ago, I just decided I'm going to live authentically. And so I shared my story. Nobody had really talked about it. And I realized by sharing my story how powerful that was and that I could make a difference. And so I realized instead of just doing little things, I really wanted to make my story my mission. And I didn't want people to feel like I felt. I felt so alone 16 years ago. People were not talking about BRCA mutations. They weren't talking about risk reducing surgeries. If I had a dollar for every doctor or healthcare professional that told me I should exercise or eat right before they knew about this, I just felt almost tricked into believing that maybe I was making the wrong decisions. And I knew I was doing what was right. And I didn't want anyone else to ever feel that. And so I know I have a powerful voice
Yeah.
and I really am a passionate person. And when I believe in something, I give it 100%. And so I knew that my truth was going to make a difference.
Yeah.
And I think that always sort of, I'm an only child. I grew up as always doing everything on my own, being that voice. If nobody spoke up for me, I wouldn't have a voice. And so I think that part of my childhood maybe formed that sense of toughness in me. But I do give my mom a little bit of that credit as well for starting me early and my dad. But I think that I've always been a really strong voice to speak up for what I believe is right.
Yeah. And I want to say how, sorry I am that you went through this all alone and you felt so horrible.
Yeah,
And I also, on the other hand, want to celebrate you. And that's why I'm so happy you're here with us today, because
thank
this
you.
is just another place for you to share. And yes, you have a very powerful voice and you know exactly what you want to say and you know exactly what you want to do for people. So, yeah,
And if I can
everybody,
interrupt for
Yes.
1 second. I think one of the reasons why I'm successful in what I do is because I never tell people what to do. I will never tell somebody what to do. I will give my information and then allow people to make their own decisions. And I think that's really important when you're an advocate.
Yeah, exactly. It is for sure. You just have to give people their options and listen to them.
Exactly. But it's like that with coaching as well, right? It's about providing information and letting people make their own decisions.
Exactly.
That's really what it's about, to maybe guide them, but you want people to have their own aha moments.
Exactly. Yes. I was going to say that. Yeah, it's like coaching. Exactly. That's what coaching is. So
Yeah.
that's why, I love it so much. And I love to be able to, I understand your passion for helping people and for seeing those aha moments and
Yeah.
taking them to the next step. So thank you for sharing all that with me. I really appreciate that. And so
Mhm.
moving forward, so now talk about Empower Inc.
Yes. So empowering, actually, I reached out like 9 years ago to an organization. It wasn't even an organization. It was this one man, Noel, who was in Colorado, and he was connecting people to cover mastectomy scars with tattoos. And so I reached out to him 9 years ago and said, I love this idea. I want to bring it to Montreal. And they said, great, take it and run with it. So for like 4 or 5 years, once a year in October, we would have a few women who would receive complimentary mastectomy tattoos to cover their scars, not nipple tattoos, but artistic tattoos.
Mhm.
Um, but then in 2022, I decided that we need a presence in Canada. And so I split ways with Personal Inc., although they are wonderful, and I would always refer them because I am a full believer in not reinventing the wheel, but in partnering with other like-minded organizations because I just want to share as much as I can.
Mhm.
And so I went out on my own and started Empower Inc., which is a play on empowering.
Yes. In 2022?
2022 is when I started on my own, but I
Okay.
started as a really small grassroots, and the goal was to have different Empower Inc. days throughout Canada a few times a year because breast cancer is not only in October, which is breast cancer month. So in 2022, I started with like GoFundMe's, and I was able to provide, 3 or 4 different locations within Montreal and Quebec City and Toronto and Oshawa, 3, 4, 5 women. But then starting this year, I officially became nonprofit.
Okay.
So now we're official, and I've partnered with an organization called Se Reconstruire. They're in Longueuil. What they are is a wellness center.
Okay.
They work similarly to the way Hope and Cope works because a lot of people know Hope and Cope. But Se Reconstruire is specifically a wellness center for only breast cancer patients.
Okay.
They provide complementary services, things like acupuncture and nipple tattooing, therapies, mastectomy bras, and it's all free. So Empower Inc. is now officially a nonprofit organization. So all the money that we raise now goes towards providing different Empower Inc. days throughout Canada,
Wow.
which are tattoo days for women and men, anywhere from 4 to 6 to 10 to 12 women in one day. Each has their own tattoo artist. We
Wow.
cater the day. We start it with champagne, food, and gifts. And it's a day all about beauty, celebration, and them being in control.
Yeah.
The rest of the money that we raise goes to this wellness center, which again provides complimentary services for all breast cancer survivors.
Wow. So, how excited are you?
So excited. So excited. We actually have our first Empowering Day of the year, May 18th in Montreal at Atelier Tattoo. We always say it's the most public-private event. So
Mm-hmm.
we share images of women who want to share. They
Hmm.
do not need to share, but
Hmm.
it's a private event. So 6 women will be receiving spectacular mastectomy tattoos. We'll share the images. It's a whole day, and they walk out feeling like for the first time, they got to decide where and what and who. And
Yeah.
then we have a few other days that we're planning in October and in November in Quebec City. And so it's open to anyone in North America. We often get people from the US,
Mhm.
especially now with the money exchange.
Yeah. You brought up, I guess just because of my past business in beauty, you brought
Yeah,
up beauty, and it's interesting because first of all, the when you feel beautiful inside.
exactly.
And there is a little bit of a play on, when you're feeling like you look beautiful on the outside, you feel better on the inside. I
Yep.
experienced it myself when I put my makeup on every day.
Right.
I, and it seems sort of, shallow, but it's not. And
I
so
I
please,
agree. I
yeah,
agree. No, I was going to say, I think people see it as shallow, but it's not.
yeah. And so can you share like one experience other than your own with someone who has already shared publicly? I don't need a name or anything like that, but just like an experience with someone that like hit you real hard, like that really you can remember like off the top of your head.
So there's this one woman, I can actually say her name. She's amazing. Her name is Luann. We had an event in Oshawa, and she decided that she wanted to cover her scars. She got this beautiful hummingbird. You can actually see it in some of my like in one of my posts. So she went there. She knew that she was going to receive a mastectomy tattoo. When she looked in the mirror, she didn't even have a chance to open her eyes yet, and the tears were starting. And I asked her, "Why are you so emotional? You haven't seen anything." And she said, "Because I know when I open my eyes, I'm not going to see scars anymore, and I'm going to feel beautiful." And that's exactly what happened. She opened her eyes, and the tears came. And to this day, every time I post something, she always says, "I feel so beautiful now."
I'm crying, because when you see a scar, it's not that the scar is so ugly, it's like what it means and it's what you remember and it's you
Exactly.
remember the experience going through it and all
That's it.
the
It's not the scar. It's not the scar. It's the reminder of the lived experience.
yeah,
And if I can add one more, men get breast cancer too.
yeah.
And I try to encourage men to come into this program. And we did have one man come into this program. His name was Doug. And when he wrote his application to me, he said, "I don't take my shirt off when I go swimming anymore because I feel so self-conscious."
Mm.
He came, he got this spectacular tattoo. His wife was with him. And 2 months later, I got a message from his daughter saying, "My dad is going topless again."
Yeah,
It's things like that. I have a story for every woman and man who have come through this because whatever the reaction is, it's so not what they expected it to be.
yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, listen, there's a lot involved there, a lot of feelings, a lot of emotions, a lot
Yeah,
of fear, a lot of coming out of that fear, and
exactly.
you're giving them an opportunity to feel good again.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when you make people feel good, I mean, it's the same thing for me over and over again, but when you make people feel good, they bring goodness into the world. And so by you doing this for other people, you're doing this for the world.
But I mean, let's call a spade a spade. I mean, I'm doing it because it makes me feel good too.
Yes.
And I think it's important to be able to validate that my selfish reason, my why, is because it makes me feel good to do for others. So that's my selfish reason for doing it. I have nothing to gain except it makes me feel happy to be able to pay it forward.
Yes.
So
Uh,
I'm also getting that joy.
yes,
I think sometimes feel people feel shy to say that, but I'm fairly humble, but when it comes to this, I brag. I'm proud of what I've accomplished.
yes.
And that makes me feel proud and good. And
Yeah.
so I'm also getting something from it.
Yes, you are for sure. Yes, and I understand that because I've worked with people before and like people like kids and some, people would say that's so selfless of you. I said, no, it's actually totally selfish. And
Right?
I get that, yeah.
Yeah,
But in the end, it all goes around and it's
exactly.
amazing. So you just came out with, before we move on, I want to bring up your book, but before we go talk about your book,
Yeah.
which made me reach out to you because I thought, like, your story has always been so interesting. And in my journey of this podcast, it's like something like happens, and I'm like, now's the time.
Yeah.
Now's the
Yeah.
time. It's a
Yeah.
perfect time. So, is there anything else you wanted to share before we get into your book?
Yes. First of all, I am a patient advocate. And so if anybody has a question, please feel free to reach out to me by email. I think it's really important to understand that although I share, I'm also there if you have any questions. And that being diagnosed with a hereditary cancer mutation does not change who you are. You were who you were, and you are who you are now. It just gives you knowledge to be able to take control the way you want. And what I did was what was best for me. There are plenty of women who have been diagnosed with this mutation who have decided that they don't want to remove healthy body parts. And that is okay.
Yeah.
I had to do what's best for me. Many people undergo screening. Some women even undergo chemotherapy prevention drugs like a tamoxifen
Mm,
because they think there might be a little bit less of a risk because they're actually suppressing the estrogen.
mhm.
But I think it's really important. My story is what I did for me.
Yeah.
I would never judge anybody. There is no right way to deal with a mutation. You have to do what's best for you and your family, and don't let anybody pressure you to make decisions you're not ready to do.
Yeah. Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And tell us about your book.
My
Yeah,
book.
first of all, what made you make the book?
So I have, I've been able to provide, not myself, if I provided the artwork, nobody would like me, but I've been able to connect over 200 women and one man with artists to receive these beautiful tattoos. And yes, Instagram is a great way to highlight what you've done. But I am old school, and there is nothing better than a book, something tangible to be able to open up and look at. I wanted to show the beauty at the end of a diagnosis. I wanted people to see how these tattoos affect them. And so I thought putting together a book with testimonials from people who have gone through this experience and to show the joy after a diagnosis would give hope to those who maybe felt lost. And
Mm,
when this book comes together, it's not often you see a book about cancer that you hear the positives.
yeah.
This is really a book just about beauty. And I made it like that on purpose so that when people are faced with plastic surgery after a mastectomy, they can see there are other options. And
Mm,
it just came together as sort of a labor of love. And I thought, no, I need to get it out there. It's another way to raise funds, to be able to provide even more programs. And I'm really proud of how it came out, and it's available on Amazon. It's also bilingual,
okay.
which is really fabulous. And so it's, 80 women and one man and how they felt after this experience, along with the most emotional photographs that capture these intimate moments.
So a labor of love. So first the labor of love was Power Inc. No, what was the first name of the that you were with, the gentleman?
First, it was Personal Link. Yeah,
Personally. Now, with a labor of love, I'm going to start Empower Inc. A
I
labor of
know.
love. Oh, I'm going to put a book together. Oh, a labor of love. I'm going to get involved with this community organization in Lungai. Oh, you know what? Now I'm going to do a fundraiser. And the book is also a fundraiser.
Yes.
So, your labor of love is your like conduit to making all these connections with
Yeah,
people and finding different ways to raise money for your organization. And
exactly.
so what can I say? Congratulations and best of luck and keep it up and
Thank you. Thank you. It
yeah,
all
keep
kind
them
of ties
coming. Keep
in.
them coming.
Yeah, it all kind of ties in. And at the end of the day, it's really just about nobody feeling alone. I think that's really what it is. Nobody should ever feel alone after any type of diagnosis,
Mhm,
mental, emotional, physical,
mhm.
whatever it is. it's important to build a support system and it's important to advocate for yourself. I mean, really, that's what it boils down to. I just want, I still, do public speaking and I still talk about hereditary cancers. And I have an online support group that's been around for 15 years called the BRCA Sisterhood, and there's 10,000 women and it goes strong. But now that it's 16 years past my own personal story, I wanted to focus, I wanted to spend most of my energy focusing on the positive.
Okay. Oh, that's so interesting. Like, yeah, you just mentioned so many things, and I think you need to send me all this information, and I'm going to put them in our,
Perfect.
in the YouTube description so that people will know
Perfect.
where to find you for
Yeah,
help or, join your communities. And and I need the link to the book. And
yeah,
then now you have a an event coming up at Gallery.
exactly.
So tell us a little
Exactly.
bit about that.
So now that we're a new nonprofit organization, we're looking to raise funds, and what better way to do it than a fun event? So we're having a musical bingo Monday, May 12th, um, at Gallery 203 on Green Avenue. And it's $100 a ticket. There are tax receipts available upon request. So if people would like that, I can tell them how to do that. With that, it is food, a drink. You get 2 raffle tickets. We have amazing gifts, and all the money raised is going to go back into empowering for our tattoo days and for se reconstruire.
That's amazing. That's great.
Yeah,
I know it's a
yeah.
beautiful gallery. I know the owner, Corinne, and
And you can see, I mean, just
great
beautiful,
person.
original,
Yeah.
spectacular art.
Yeah, no, it's a great place. So in
Yeah.
Montreal, that's fantastic. And just before, I want to talk about your kids for a few minutes before we sort of close up our conversation. How are they
You,
doing? Tell
the,
me.
so I am going to walk with you right now, so
Okay.
you will get to see the gallery
Yes.
because I need to plug in my laptop. So I
That's so funny that you're saying that because when we started, I realized that I forgot to do mine also. So I might also do that at the same time. That's hilarious.
okay, that's so funny. It's like the little triangle is there now, so I
That's
apologize.
so funny. Me too. I'm gonna move over to my plug.
Perfect.
That's hilarious. Because I've been
Okay.
watching my
I've been watching it go down. I'm like,
yeah.
uh-oh, 10% left. That's not good.
Okay,
I
no.
am going to show you some of my most favorite artwork right here.
Yeah.
Look at that. They're
Wow.
like these spectacular busts. It's by
Fantastic.
Sylvia Cohen, and I just love it. Look at
Wow. I'm gonna drop off my head for a second. Hang on.
that.
That's so funny. And people listening. Oh, I lost her. She'll come back. I think she. Wow. I'll wait another minute to see if she comes back. And we both had a problem with our with our computers, but I know that I'm still on the Zoom. So I'm going to get all of Karen's information and links to her book and information about her fundraiser. I thought that she would be a great guest on People, Their Passion and Purpose because boy, oh boy, she's a spirit to be reckoned with for sure. She's definitely on a mission. So that's amazing. I'm just going to run over to my phone for 1 second to see if she's texting me. Here we go. And let's see if she sent me a message. Wow. Okay. No, that's okay. So I'm gonna say goodbye for now. I want to thank you all for coming on to this podcast, People, Their Passion and Purpose. We were with Karen, who has an incredible company called Empower Inc. Thank you so much, Karen. You'll see this. Thank you so much for coming on with me today. You have a real message. And I think that when more people now will even more people will start to follow you and support your organization because I see big things for you in the future for sure. Can't wait to get your book and see you soon. Okay, so
So
anyways, we
sorry.
refound ourselves. And now, so I
Note to self, make sure that you plug in your laptop before podcasts.
for both of us, but also, okay, so let's get, I had said goodbye and thank you and everybody, but okay, we got Karen back. I wanted you to talk to me about your kids because I think this is also really important because a lot
Yeah,
of these people that are
that's
going through this.
that's that's the worst part of it all, truthfully. I would have 7 million surgeries if I knew that my children don't have a chance of inheriting this mutation. So you get, each child has a 50% chance of developing this mutation. And at the end of the day, I want them both to be negative, but that is not the case. Growing up, I have always shared with them age appropriate information about my decisions and that mommy did this to be here for her family. And so that's always been the focus. Mommy is here because she wants to be here and live a long life. Mommy wants to be here for daddy. We want to be able to do things as a family for as long as we can. That's how I started it. I think because my children grew up seeing so publicly what I was doing, I think it alleviated their fear a little bit. That being said, I hate thinking about the fact that my children will inherit this, especially my daughter, because I don't want her to have to go through the decisions and the surgeries that I had to go through. Hopefully, there'll be other options. But until then, all I can do is empower her, let her start going to the doctor just for regular screenings. With boys, it's a little bit different because there's really no risk reducing surgeries that they can undergo. So it really means making sure that as they get older, they're checking their prostate numbers.
Mhm.
Melanoma is also a high risk cancer. So I'm forever harassing my kids to put on sunscreen. Again, my risk is a little higher because I have an uncle who has melanoma.
Mhm.
So oftentimes when you have that cancer in your family, there's a higher risk. So the worst of all of this for me
Mhm.
is knowing that my children could inherit this.
Yeah.
That being said, there are worse things in life.
Mhm.
They're healthy, they're here, and they know that I did what I had to do and I'm okay. So I just continue to share that with them and to be able to explain and let them know information without any fear.
Yeah. Yeah. So, it sounds to me like you really have a perspective on life, pretty healthy perspective on life.
Yeah. I
And
think this forces you, I feel that for a while I had a little bit of survivor's guilt. How come I was so lucky to know this information before I got cancer when I watched so many people I know die of it? So you have this survivor guilt and then you trivialize what you've gone through. Wow, I had a mastectomy, but I didn't have cancer. And it was actually breast cancer survivors who said to me, stop that.
right.
So, I've learned how to become comfortable with these decisions.
Yeah. Wow. Well, I'm so glad that you were able to get back on.
I
And
know.
and I would invite everyone watching and listening to comment if they want to ask questions, and I'll
Yeah.
definitely relay them to you, Karen, so that you can take your time to answer them back. And
And I'm an open book. I think
yeah,
that if people do have questions, if they're shy to post them,
yeah,
then they can find me on Facebook Messenger and
yeah,
message me. People don't have to share things
yeah, good.
publicly.
Exactly. You're right. You're right. But maybe just how to get in touch with you and stuff like that.
Exactly.
Yeah. Great. Okay, Karen. So thank you so much again for coming on today to People
Thank
Be
you for
Passionate.
inviting me. I
Yeah,
really appreciate it.
have an amazing story, and I'm so excited for what's to come for Empower Inc. Yeah, amazing. Thank you.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
everybody. Take care. Okay, bye.